Portable TV, come watch with me. Here's the question. What is the new direction going to be when it comes to how the United States engages other countries? We have our contributors, we have our correspondents that have been following this story throughout the day, because this is important, especially, you know, as we embark on a brand new administration for this country, for our country. John Huddy is going to be tackling U.S. relations with China and Iran. Farron Franzak is going to be looking at how Mr. Biden is going to deal with the EU and with Russia. John, let's begin with something the president said that caught our attention. Yeah. He seemed to be emphatic about wanting to get out of Yemen.
Correct. One thing, though, that really stood out to me about his speech, which you could title it Leading with Diplomacy, because he kept using that term over and over. But what he was not what he so much talked about, but what he didn't talk about as well, that being a lot of detail about Iran, the JCPOA, Israel, our alliances with, you know, Gulf countries. But as far as Yemen, and we talked about this earlier, the president did talk about ending what he called the brutal war in Yemen, announcing that the U.S. would no longer support any offensive action in that brutal conflict. Listen to what else he had to say.
This war has to end. And to underscore our commitment, we are ending all American support for offensive operations in the war in Yemen, including relevant arms sales. At the same time, Saudi Arabia faces missile attacks, UAV strikes, and other threats from Iranian-supplied forces in multiple countries. We're going to continue to support and help Saudi Arabia defend its sovereignty and its territorial integrity and its people.
I like the way he says, sorry, Saudis, but we're out of Yemen. You're on your own there. Oh, but by the way, Saudis, if somebody's bad to you or mean to you, we're going to be there to help you.
Yeah, they're not. Look, the U.S. right? isn't pulling its military assets out of Saudi Arabia. In fact, they're going to be moving, and we reported on this. I reported on this, about a week and a half ago, military personnel, equipment, assets from the Persian Gulf to the Red Sea instead, to keep out of Iranian target range. So it's not like the U.S. is cutting off all support of Saudi Arabia. That will continue. Also, the U.S. will continue to go after al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula based out of Yemen.
Nothing is unilateral when it comes to the Middle East. Whatever you do for Yemen affects Saudi Arabia, the other Gulf states, Israel, and certainly Iran.
Absolutely. He didn't talk about Israel. He didn't talk about the potential for war, and there's always the potential for war between Israel and Iran, but how the U.S., you know, the alliance between Israel and the U.S., the arms deals that the U.S., the billions of dollars that the U.S. makes in weapons and arms deals with Israel, including F-35 stealth fighters, and on and on and on.
Let's go to Farron and talk a little bit about, specifically, you know, you were looking at what he would do or has said or what the policy may be in regards to Russia and specifically the EU. But when you look at the EU, it seems like that's been a real prickly relationship during the Trump years. What do you see changing? What trends are you looking at already?
Right. So the biggest takeaway with Russia and the EU is exactly where President Trump was on his stance versus President Biden. We remember President Trump. He was very much build the wall, anti-immigration, anti-refugees and immigrants. Biden, he says when he was vice president that the U.S. was actually the world leader in bringing in refugees fleeing violence and persecution. And he says the U.S. set an example and pushed other countries to do the same. So while Trump was against bringing in refugees, we have a complete and total about-face from President Biden. Listen here.
So today, I'm approving an executive order to begin the hard work of restoring our refugee admissions program to help meet the unprecedented global need. This executive order will position us to be able to raise the refugee admissions back up to 125,000 persons for the first full fiscal year of the Biden-Harris administration.
This is not going to make him a hero with a lot of people in Europe, by the way. Europe has a real big refugee problem. By the way, caused by the United States encroachment in places like the Middle East.
Exactly. You hear that number, 125,000. Last year, Trump only allowed in 18,000. That was the lowest number that we saw since 1980, where we had 200,000 coming in. Now, Biden says that this is going to help our European allies, and you can see the map here of all the countries that are having big problems. Germany has taken in the most refugees. We remember Trump always had this ongoing spat with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, saying that Germany Germany wasn't paying its fair share with NATO, therefore we're not going to help you, you're on your own. Now, also, Biden reiterated again, seeing this complete opposite of Trump, where he said, you'll see here, he extended the Russia START treaty for 5 years. He demanded the immediate release of Alexei Navalny. He rejoins the Paris Climate Accord. He's removing the Muslim ban. And also, he's freezing the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Germany. We have about 34,000. Trump wanted to bring about 9,500 back home. Trump says, nope, you're staying put.
I'm going to mix metaphors here just a little bit for you, John, but I know you can handle it because you live in Miami. The big enchilada, China.
Big enchilada, that's nice.
Sorry.
That's good. That's pretty good.
What's going on between the the Biden administration vis-a-vis China?
Look, he didn't get into too much specifics about China, and we kind of already knew that with this speech. It was in broad general terms. What he said was, these are direct words, we'll confront China's economic abuses, push back on China's human rights abuses, and also technological property violations, though he also added we're willing to work with Beijing when it's in America's interest to do so. Look, there's some fires, as I said earlier, there's some fires they got to put out. You know, the situation between China and Taiwan, you know, the South China Sea dispute, all these things, a number of issues, hot button issues that they have to negotiate and navigate.
So is it a reset? He almost has to do
a reset. I mean, is it ever a reset? I guess in some sense, sure, it is. He's moving away from the whole, as I said, America first, Trump policy, and pushing, as I said, leading with diplomacy. The term that he kept kind of hammering on in this speech. So in a sense, it is a reset. But when you're talking about China, look. You're talking about cybersecurity issues. You're talking about trade and
I know. There's a lot to go around, and there's a lot that
yeah.
you can accuse the Chinese of legitimately that they have done, and we can't get into it because we're out of time. Yeah. But it's a conversation.
I was going to say North Korea. He didn't talk about North Korea too.
Well, there's a lot of countries out here. We only picked 4. What could we do?
Exactly.
Good stuff, guys. We appreciate it. John Farron, my thanks to both of you.